Climate and Clean Air Coalition, Partnership for Clean Fuels and Vehicles, Red Latinoamericana de Investigación en Energía y Vehículos, something like Research Network for Energy and Vehicles in Latin America, FIA Foundation. All these entities are partners for Latin America and Caribbean in projects related to the regional agenda in the areas of environment, climate change, energy efficiency, transportation and mobility. All of this is aligned with the Sustainable Development Goals of United Nations. We would like to inform you that this session will be recorded, and actually it's being recorded, and also is streamed on YouTube. The idea is that if you had questions during the webinar, you can go to the mailbox located at the bottom of your screen and put your question that will be answered at the end of the webinar. We will have 10 to 15 minutes to answer questions. If you had any additional comments, please send us an email to the genergetica@utp.edu.co, which is our email. The agenda for this event today is shown in the screen. We will start the event with some welcome words from Veronica from the Sustainable Mobility Unit of the United Nations Environment Program Unit. After that, we will have the main speaker, Miss Sheila Watson, which is Deputy Director of the FIA Foundation. And at the end, we will have a space for questions that we will ask the participant of this webinar to clarify some doubts on strength and the conclusion of these meetings. As I told you before, the question you have to deposit your question in the mailbox at the bottom of your screen, so with the mirroring. And finally, we will have the closer of the event. So we are going to start this webinar. We are going to start with the intervention of Ms. Veronica Ruiz-Stanat, which is the Program Officer of the Sustainable Mobility Unit of the United Nations Environment Program. Welcome, Veronica, and go ahead.
Thank you very much, Juan Esteban, and I'm very happy to welcome all of you, experts, participants here to this event for Latin America and the Caribbean. UNEP has been supporting the region, as well as all other regions globally, on working towards cleaner and more efficient transport through various different programs that Juan Esteban mentioned, such as the Climate and Clean Air Coalition, the Partnership for Clean Fuels and Vehicles, Global Fuel Economy Initiative, and others. And the primary objective in all of these for UNEP is to reduce climate change greenhouse gas emissions, as well as co-benefits such as cleaner and better air quality for all. So we're very happy to start this Global Fuel Economy Initiative in 2009, together with other partners, including the FIA Foundation. And we have been able to support more than 100 countries globally, and in South America as well, about 20 countries. So today we'll be able to share some of these experiences and lessons learned globally and in the region as well. We've been working in implementing projects really on the ground at national level, at sub-regional level, and as well at regional level in Latin America and the Caribbean. We've been able to really progress. We've got baselines for numerous countries, but there's still a long way to go. And so we welcome you here to understand more about the work and to help us to continue the work that we have to do. And I'm very pleased to pass the word to Sheila Watson, who is our colleague and the keynote speaker today, and to thank very much the University of Technology of Pereira for helping us to host this event that is really going to also present and deliver some various communications products for the region on all of these areas of work, and that will be also a benefit and support to the various countries and key stakeholders. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Veronica, for that introduction. I'm now going to share my screen, so bear with me just one moment while I do that. Great. So hopefully you can all see those slides. And good morning. I realise it's morning where you are. It's late afternoon where I am here in Europe, and it would have been absolutely wonderful to be physically all together, but sadly not this time, hopefully at another point. So it's my great pleasure to give you some background on this project, the Global Fuel Economy Initiative, which is really the leading and the longest established partnership of expert organisations working together to address the emissions, the CO2 impact of the global vehicle fleet. I'm not going to read out all of those organisations across the bottom. There are now 6 of us working together in this work, and we have been doing in various groupings since 2009. As I say, working to address the impact of the global fleet on the climate. Bear with me 1 second, right? Yes, sorry, that wasn't working, but nowadays that's great. So what is the context for what the GFEI is doing? And the context way back when we started really, sadly, in a way, hasn't changed. There are going to be far too many vehicles on our roads, potentially a tripling of the global fleet by 2050. And that is an unsustainable challenge in very many ways, but most particularly in terms of the energy demands that will place on our existing energy systems, and of course the resultant impact on our climate. And this was an issue which all of the partners in the initiative had been working on and thinking about, and which, when we came together very informally to begin with, struck us as an area which was much neglected. The consensus at that point was either that this fleet growth was inevitable and nothing could be done, or that perhaps a miracle technology would come along and help us out. Our strong feeling was that we had perhaps the least sexy of ways of beginning to address the challenge, which was to improve efficiency. And that was the core issue which the Global Fuel Economy Initiative really set out to address. And we set targets at that point for where we felt we could get to using existing technology at that point. And we felt that we could double average fuel efficiency in light duty vehicles by 2050 in all new vehicles, by 2035 in the existing fleet. And so that was our original target, and our work began from there. And the work that we did really fell into 3 key parts. One was working in countries to build capacity for fuel economy policy, and I'll come back to that. That's very much the strongest part of our work in many ways. The second part was to build a strong evidence base, to develop an understanding of where the trends were going, to address key questions and so on. And then finally, to raise awareness. As I say, this was not necessarily the biggest issue that people were considering at that point, and the efficiency aspect in particular, although it was being addressed in many places, was not being addressed so much in the parts of the world where that fleet growth was going to be happening, which was really outside of the OECD. So we wanted to focus our work there and make people much more aware of what was going on. So we set some targets. I mentioned the initial targets, and then subsequent to that, we revisited our targets and we expanded the work that GFEI does from light duty vehicles right the way through heavy duty transit buses, 2- and 3-wheelers, setting really ambitious targets which built off the use of efficiency, the decarbonisation of energy sources, various scenarios there, and also incorporating electrification, which of course over the now 13 years that we've been working in this field really has become a core element of the way in which this challenge is going to be addressed. It's really important to say at this point, though, that although GFEI does focus very much on the solutions to the efficiency side of this, we are very, very keenly aware that that is not enough for what we need to achieve for Paris. And so we also very much support the pressure and push which is taking place to move people away from vehicles altogether, to move into shared transit, but also to retain or develop and protect walking and cycling. So the evidence-based element of the work that we do is, as I said, really crucial to us. And over the 13 years, we've developed a working paper series. We've published 24 or more working papers, and we've published special edition pieces of research around them. Really importantly, tracking, as I say, progress on vehicle fuel efficiency. So we've developed what is a unique global data set of progress, and we renew the update every couple of years. Again, I'll talk about that in a moment, but also picking up on major global policy processes and producing research and material bespoke to them. So for example, around the Sustainable Development Goals, around the COP process, and also really focusing in on key questions. So we have undertaken research around secondhand vehicle flows, which is something that UNEP have really picked up and done a great deal more work on, around heavy duty vehicles, around roadmaps in different regions of the world. So a quite wide variety of evidence, which really underpins our work. And as I mentioned just then, we published just very recently our latest update on the progress of fuel efficiency over the period of 2005 to 2019. And those dates are determined by the availability of data. And what we have discovered in our very latest research is that the increase and improvement in fuel efficiency in our last period really has slowed substantially from what is required to barely 1% per year, which is just not going to reach the targets that we have set. They're significantly lower rates of progress than the 2.8% that we need on a yearly basis. And there are lots of reasons for that. One very important reason is the increasing size of vehicles, the increasing use of SUVs, but also the inadequacy of policy tools and a lack of recognition of the importance of the issue. So that is alarming. As part of that work, though, we also, and I say we, this was actually IEA, the International Energy Agency, did some very new work on well-to-wheel emissions of vehicles by type. Very important work because it showed the overwhelming significance and usefulness in terms of CO2 of battery electric vehicles. And really an example here of us using research to try and address a point of debate within the conversation about alternate fuels. Many people making the point that they think in the end there is no difference between the various forms of combustion and alternate fuels, and this research showing that there really clearly is. So that's quite an important piece of GFEI evidence contributing to the debate. And then, as I said before, we've done everything we can to raise these issues to the highest level, working with our partners. On the right-hand side of this slide, you can see a campaign we ran committing individual countries to support the work and to engage. We pledged at COP21 in Paris to have 100 countries that we were working with, and we have reached that target. And of course, many of you are part of that, and we're excited and delighted always to work with you, but also taking these issues into UN debates and discussions and other high-level policy conversations. And as I say, country support really is the backbone of the work. So we're in and have been in 100 countries or so, some of those through regional conversations, developing policy, establishing baselines, and even where we can, although it's resource dependent and resources for this type of work sadly are not always very available, but we have progressed to support policy to implementation also, and we're really proud of the places where we've managed to do that. Alongside this, we've also worked in support of processes such as the G20 transport task group process, the SDG 7, which is the energy SDG technical advisory group. So we try our best to share our knowledge out in the pursuit of greater vehicle efficiency and so on. So turning to the region we're talking about now, as Veronica just mentioned, we're working with 20 countries. We've completed the essential initial fuel economy baselines in 16 of those countries. And we've put a huge amount of energy with our partners. And again, our partners in different forms will be part of this conversation today. And we always value regional partners as a crucial part of GFEI's work. And one example of how we've tried to ensure that not only are we supporting individual countries, but we are enabling individual countries to come together and learn from each other and share experiences and share knowledge and learning is through the regional meetings that we support. The last of these, of course, was pre-COVID in 2019 in Peru, and we were delighted that 17 countries were able to send representatives, and that meeting focused on one key policy tool, which is labeling, and of course also on the development of electric mobility, and was a very successful conversation. One of the very significant developments for GFEI a little while ago now, in the very early days, was the work we were able to do with Chile, which of course has been a leader in fuel economy really over a very long period of time. They were one of our earliest pilot countries, and we completed our baseline work there in 2010, as the slide shows, and undertook some additional analysis to support policy options which were able to be adopted. So fuel economy labeling in 2013, a green tax targeting carbon more generally in 2014, and a full-scale energy efficiency law in 2021. And really, Chile is not only for us at GFEI one of our great one of the countries with whom we've worked, of which we are most proud at this point, of course, just at this point, because there's plenty of time for everyone else, but is also, I know, a country which many others within the movement towards zero carbon mobility are working, and who I know also are doing a great deal to support and work with others in the region. A few more examples. We have worked with Argentina since 2017 and had a launch event on April 25th to highlight the implementation of a fuel economy label, which will, I hope, have come into force just now. And we've worked closely through UNEP with the Argentinian government, who've been very supportive of this work, to develop national fuel economy policies. And this work is undertaken with the support of a great deal of different organizations. And we should mention that support, for example, from the European Commission, from the GEF fund, and also from my own foundation, which has put several $1 million into the work of GFEI over the years that we have supported it. And in many ways, that's a very unique situation. Most initiatives are not able to find funding which persists and which supports longer term work. But we're very pleased that we've been able to do that. And as the example of Chile shows, I think where you're able to begin this process, which of course it always is a process of starting with a baseline, of looking as we're able to do through our toolkit at policy alternatives, of engaging stakeholders in discussions, of developing policy options, and so on. It can be a really long process, and so it is really valuable to be able to secure funding which also persists, and it enables us to show the benefits, hopefully, and the advantageous, the usefulness of this approach and these policy solutions. So I know that the Argentinian work, which was launched in conjunction with the Ministry of Environment and Sustainable Development and with representatives of local industry, has had some technical assistance from the Centre for Sustainable Mobility, and so really reinforcing also the importance to us of working in partnership when we are working in countries. So Argentina, I think, already showing the benefits of working collectively and secure and working with us within GFEI. In 2018, we were part of a workshop in Lima in Peru, which was considering, this was hosted by the Ministry of Environment, considering proposals for taxes and other incentives to promote cleaner and more efficient vehicles in the country. And we were very excited there that we were able to be joined by 4 ministries from the Peruvian government, from the environment side, the energy side, transport, and economy and finance, to work together and look together at the options that are available to address the issue. And again, that's a really important lesson that we have learned in doing this work, which is the more that we can bring together different departments within a government, the more that we can not only secure the interest of perhaps the more obvious departments, transport or potentially environment, but the more that we can then engage the departments that hold the money, the purse, the fiscal, the tax-based departments such as finance or economy, and of course energy, because at the end of the day, as I very briefly touched on at the beginning of this meeting, only low carbon energy will bring us a solution through electrification. So of course it's vital to include them too, and to look at policy solutions and options which may address a range of different objectives across those departments. And here on my slide, I've taken a small element of some work which was done by ICCT, the International Council on Clean Transportation, one of our partners in GFEI, looking at alternate policy options in terms of tax and tax take, and therefore cost, as it were. So this is the ideal way in which GFEI would like to work, engaging governments, engaging local stakeholders, working through ideas and policy options in a collective way. And that's something we're really proud to be able to say we've done in Latin America. And then, of course, the region goes, of course, beyond the Latin American countries and into the Caribbean. And so we have worked over many, many years with different countries in the Caribbean region also, starting many years ago in Jamaica, but culminating again just before COVID in 2018 in a large workshop that we were able to host in Jamaica, which really brought together all of the countries in the region, or pretty much everyone, again, to look at options, to consider local circumstances, to begin to talk through policy options. And in Mexico, in 2017, we undertook some work, and again, led alongside UNEP by ICCT, to look at the relative costs and benefits of developing what was existing policy into greenhouse gas regulation further, and looking at the potential benefits and disbenefits of that. So again, learning very much here that in the case of the Regional Caribbean Workshop, it is very important to bring together the various countries to get different perspectives. And as I said before, to learn from each other and to consider common issues from different perspectives. And in the case of Mexico, to look, for example, at existing policies. So not always beginning in a situation where there is no policy, but also working with GFEI where there is existing policy to look at what useful next steps there might be. And then again, some more examples of the sort of work we've done in Brazil, where there is already a vehicle fuel economy label with standards and fiscal policies, working really closely to see how we might support next steps and future phases of these relatively sophisticated policies that are already in place. So we know that up to 2022, there is a plan for 11% improvement in energy efficiency over 2017. And so now the discussion is, where do we go next? 2030, what should be the target for that date? And how might we get there, and what role will the vehicle fleet play in helping to achieve the efficiency, excuse me, improvements? Sorry. So one of the things that we know, sorry, excuse me, something caught in my throat. One of the things that we know is it is absolutely essential to understand the starting point in any country if you're going to begin to develop a path forwards. And so support for baseline workshops and baseline work, I think, is one of the strongest and most important elements of whatever GFEI does with countries. And whilst, of course, it's important to look at how policy could be developed, you know, that ability to check where you started and to see whether progress is being made is crucial. So the work that we've been doing with the Dominican Republic, Paraguay, Belize, and other places in the region to develop those baselines is a really crucial underpinning for going forward in the region, because the region does have a real energy efficiency challenge. The whole world has a energy efficiency challenge. And of course, also increasingly, many countries are signing up to electrification pledges and to CO2 targets. And really how you ensure that the vehicle fleet in the country is going to play its proper part is very crucial. So from the politicians' commitments to the on-the-ground work, we feel GFEI is able to offer some real support. And we do that, as I said, just finally through local partners. And we really do value the organizations with whom we work who are here with us today, and particularly, and the image there reflects this, Centro Mario Molina, with whom we've worked over the whole time of GFEI, and Gianni, who we work so closely with, and whose contribution and his whole team's contribution has really been invaluable. So those are just some examples of how we've worked in the region. They very much echo how we've worked in other regions at a local, national, regional, sub-regional level, drawing together experience, building baselines, looking at policy options, trying to support policy process right the way through to completion where we can. And I mentioned that there is this increasing global push towards electrification, which is built over the time GFEI has been working, and it's very much incorporated into the work we do. There are specific projects offering support around electrification through, for example, UNEP, but also through the work that GFEI does on the ground. And I really just wanted to touch on the very latest thinking from the initiative in terms of that concept of a global transformation, because it is undoubtedly the case that a lot of the conversation has really focused on the developed world, the largest markets, and some of those, of course, are in your region, but the the countries which maybe in many cases have already made substantial steps forward towards the use of alternate fuel sources. So not just the efficiency of internal combustion engines, but alternate sources. And so we really wanted at GFEI to use the expertise we've built over 13 years, working with everyone here and everyone in the other regions with whom we engage, to really try and inform those very high-level political commitments with some really on-the-ground experience and evidence. And so one of the things that we did in time for COP26 was to publish our Zero Pathway, which absolutely makes the case for the importance of a transition to zero carbon mobility, the role of electric vehicles in that, but also really importantly, I think, identifies the different challenges for different countries, and the need to consider the support and the the activities, the resources which countries might need in order to ensure that they are able to move with the transition and do not experience some of the pitfalls, for example, the import of very dirty second-hand vehicles, the impact on labour forces of becoming sort of assembly points without having anticipated that, and so on. So there are issues that come from a global transition of this nature, which we feel that every country should be made aware of and supported in addressing. And so that's what our Zero Pathway did, and sort of central to it is this idea of the different sorts of S-curves, the transition paths towards the level of electrification that we would all like to see in time to reach at least the best we can towards Paris. And the red line here is essentially the path that the leading markets are on. And our concern at GFEI is that people think that's it. The leading markets do this thing and everyone else automatically falls in behind and falls into place. And we very much wanted to use our experience to consider different countries and different regions and groupings. And this is one such grouping where we look at countries which are close followers of the leading markets, countries which are aggressive importers of the vehicles coming from the leading markets, where the trickle down of these new vehicles may well happen. And then, of course, the rest of the world, and there's quite a substantial part of that don't fit into either of those groups, and really looking at the sorts of policy frameworks that are going to be needed across all those country types to ensure that we get where we need to be. And so we have laid out a little detail here, and I won't go into all of it. I'm conscious of time, but really we're still absolutely clear that every government should set CO2 targets and targets for electric vehicles, but that they should also have fuel efficiency standards and have the processes in place and the regulations in place that you've all been working on together, that these things must sit together, that it would be wrong to leap simply to thinking electrification will happen tomorrow and can be done easily. Now, that does not mean we do not support it. We do support an accelerated transition away from ICE, but it needs to be done in a way which is planned and takes into account country circumstances. Other things in there, obviously power generation from renewables is essential. An end to fossil fuel subsidies is essential. The use, as I said before, and the support of non-motorized mobility is essential too. But finally, and really importantly, we really support the need for capacity building resources into poorer nations, follower nations, the rest of the world, however we define this, so that they have what they need, so that we all have what we need to support the transition. So one of the things which the UK government, as chair of COP26, has put in place is something called the Zev Transition Council. It's a grouping of countries, and they have come together to consider what needs to be done to support this transition. And we are, as GFEI and our member partners in different ways and separately, are also involved in supporting that work and in ensuring through regional conversations, through an international expert grouping and a variety of other forms, that the voices of countries outside those leading markets are heard and their circumstances are properly considered. And really, at the end of the day, resources are found in a way which I think has probably not been the case sufficiently well across the whole climate challenge to ensure that the change that is going to be needed across the world is fair and equitable. And so we're at the sort of cutting edge as GFEI of that global work, and it will continue. It will continue in the foreseeable future, but it will not alter the other things that we will continue to do. So we will continue to produce interesting, we believe, research and insights. We will continue to monitor progress. We'll continue to raise awareness and to support countries. That really is all I wanted to share with you today. I hope that has given you an overview of what GFEI is about, or what we've been doing and what we hope to do in the future, and where we think the challenges lie. So thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Sheila.
Thank you.
Please go ahead.
Thank you, Sheila, for your presentation. At the beginning of your presentation, I forgot to present you. Ms. Sheila Watson is the Deputy Director of the FIA Foundation. She leads the Foundation's work on environmental and sustainability issues in earth and gender, as well as its research program. She's also Executive Secretary to the Rural Fuel Economy Initiative, which seeks to support the development of fuel economy policies across the world, at the Real Urban Emission Initiative, which is using real-world emission data to support the update of clean vehicles. Chile is a board member of several mobility initiatives and projects, such as the World Bank's Sustainable Mobility for All project. She was recently named as one of the 40 most influential women in transport by the German government. She is an economist with many years of experience as an advisor and consultant. Her previous role was senior special advisor to the UK Labour government at the Department for Trade and Industry, the Private Council, the Department of Environment, Youth and Rural Affairs, and the Foreign Office. During the 10 years she spent at the head of the UK government, she specialized in a range of environmental and resource protection issues, from sustainable farming and food production to international climate security. Her former roles include Deputy Director of the Center for Local Economic Strategies and Policy Researcher at the Institute for Fiscal Studies. Sheila has an honors degree from the University of Oxford and a master's degree in economics from Birkbeck College in London. We would like to thank you, Sheila, for your presentation. It was very, very important for us to know what you present us today. Now we are going to have some questions that we have in our chat. We are going to start with the one that is sent by Daniel Cordero from Ecuador. Daniel said, "Good morning. Thank you very much for this webinar. My question is, what do we need, or what do you need to start working in Ecuador with this initiative?"
Hi, thank you for your question. The most important thing, I think, in practical terms, to work in any country is to have the level of commitment from the country that they want to engage. So for the local partners and local organizations, so in this case, UN Environment and Veronica may well be able to offer more insights into the extent to which they have already been engaging with Ecuador. But basically, you need political commitment. You do need some resources. And again, Veronica can probably best describe how that works. But in essence, the government has to be prepared to if only offer the time of staff to have conversations. They do need to offer some resources, as it were, and then it's possible to begin at least the process towards a baseline. So Veronica, I don't know if you want to add something very specific on Ecuador, because I know they're on our list, but we haven't engaged as far as I can see. Then obviously please do.
Yeah, thank you, Sheila, and thank you for the question, Danielle. So we are actually currently working in Ecuador, and we are currently developing a baseline for Ecuador, and that should be presented to the government by end of June of this year. That work is being carried out with the support of the Centro Movilidad Sostenible, one of our key technical partners in the region. And following this, we hope to be able to further support them with policy development. They have already been progressing, again, also previously with GFEI support in, if I'm not mistaken, the labeling. So yes, we are already working with Ecuador, and we intend to continue supporting them. They have also started developing a program for electric mobility as well for the country. And we're going to be working with them as part of the Global Environment Facility program that we have. It's a program that is global. We're working with countries across all regions as well on supporting the introduction of electric mobility into all these countries and fast tracking this work for more low and zero emission vehicles. So that is another work that we're doing with Ecuador as well. I don't know if Felipe, you want to add anything, Case, additional?
Yeah, yes, maybe because I know what Daniel already works. One of the things that I would like to suggest is maybe to follow some similar pathway that the one we follow in Colombia, and for example, try to contact. We will try to contact the consultant that is supporting this process in Ecuador with the university, with universities, including Universidad de la SUAY, because some of the most important things that we can do through the GFEI is to do capacity building and to live capacities in the country. So it basically what we have done with UTP in Colombia. They for example, at the beginning they developed the field economy baseline in 2016, and after that they start working with the government in different topics, including energy efficiency. So maybe what we can do in Ecuador also to support the development of a baseline and to live capacities in the countries, to try to contact you with the consultant that is developing the GFEI in Ecuador in order to include you in the technical discussions and to try to live the way that you can develop, for example, a baseline for the country.
Thank you, Felipe. Thank you, Veronica. I have a question regarding this. Is from our university here in Colombia, we are trying to support the Ministry of Transport in Colombia to have a regulation in order to accomplish with the GFEI targets in Colombia. But in this regard, we had seen that the people which is in charge of the sale of vehicles, the manufacturers in Colombia, are very reluctant to this kind of regulations. So in that way, it's going to be hard to get the targets accomplished for 2030. So, Sheila, my question is, what do we have to do in order to combine all the manufacturers, the sellers of vehicles in our country to be part of this initiative?
Thank you for the question. In a way, that's sort of the magic question, isn't it? I think I would start by saying it may not be possible to get everybody to agree every aspect of this. And in some ways, whilst it is absolutely essential to try, and I think one of the important ways, and I'm sure that you're exploring this, is to bring people together, is to have open conversations, is to share analysis and data, to be very transparent, so people can feel that they can build trust just in the communication and the partnership. But I think that all of that can be done. And of course, there will still be groupings that may feel threatened or concerned about the impact that it will have on them. And really, in that situation, it is important to reiterate, I think, to those who will take the policy decisions, the wider importance of making change. And I think in that situation, it is where really the issue broadens from climate into other issues, which are also incredibly important to politicians and to local citizens. So issues of things like air quality and health impacts, of congestion, of increasingly issues around things like fuel security, and so on. So I suppose my simple answer is you can only reach out and talk and share. And I know GFEI, we put a lot of effort into trying to support that, and be open and transparent. You can't force people to ultimately always agree. And that's where, you know, a regulatory framework has to play its role in supporting necessary change. And we've seen, of course, everywhere in the world where change like this has come, there will be periods and difficult moments. But change has come. People and organizations and manufacturers can see how important, for example, it is increasingly where globalization is in place, where the vehicles and their products are being sold in many places, to have a situation of certainty as to what change is coming. And we would call it a level playing field, an equality in different markets. So there are reasons within the changes that we're looking for. There are aspects which are to the advantage of forward-looking manufacturers. So it has to be about talking and sharing, but at the end of the day, politicians have to take this on and do the right thing.
Thank you, Sheila. We had another question from Sebastiano Spina. He is wondering what is the next step to have baselines in different countries for heavy-duty vehicles, buses, and motorcycles, Sheila.
So the specifics of that for countries in the region, I would probably pass to Veronica, if that's a question about processes that are already taking place in certain countries. If not, then if it's a general question about establishing baselines for heavy duty, that is definitely something that we're looking to support where we can. It is a much sort of, you know, the heavy duty side of things is an increasingly important area, not just for CO2, but also for air quality. We have other projects as a foundation that we support on air quality. And there is no doubt that the heavy duty sector is growing and we have to address it. But I think for the region specifically, I would have to hand that one over to Veronica.
Yeah, hi, thanks, Sheila. So for the region, you know, as you mentioned, the heavy duty vehicle sector is increasing and in importance as well in emissions. And so we have initiated a project in Mexico, and we do have an initial methodology that we have developed together with the University of Monterrey. And that will be like a basis for us to try to develop a more concrete methodology for heavy duty vehicle analysis and baseline, and then see if we can roll it out and develop it further and introduce it for other countries. But at the moment, that is the only, let's say, attempt that we have made to analyze heavy duty vehicle fleet. Yeah, thank you. I don't know if any of the experts from UTP might want to add to that.
Veronica, maybe from my side, in regarding this question, I would like to highlight two things. First one is, for example, Chile has taken a huge progress in terms of energy efficiency law, because they already include in this law light duty vehicles, medium duty vehicles, and heavy duty vehicles. So they already put in their coming plans heavy duty vehicles as one of the sectors that they need to regulate. And it means that at some point they need to develop some kind of baseline for the country. The problem with heavy duty vehicles is that it's not as easy as, for example, light duty vehicles, because you have engine, you have different configurations of the truck, so you need to take into account those kind of variables for developing the baseline. So in this case, Chile will face that challenge in the coming years. And the other thing that I would like to highlight is the Vector program. Vector is the European initiative for starting the regulations of energy efficiency of heavy duty vehicles. That's for heavy duty vehicles, but also there is a huge opportunity to work on 2- and 3-wheelers. And we also need to face the way that to develop a common methodology that can allow us to compare different heavy duty or 2- and 3-wheelers market between countries.
Thank you, Felipe, for your answer. I guess we had a space for just one question. Maybe Felipe, you said you had one question. Do you want to proceed with your question, Felipe?
Yes, thank you for giving me the opportunity to ask my question. Well, regarding Sheila's presentation, I have seen that there is a connection between the energy efficiency standards and with coming activities on electromobility. So first of all, I would like to highlight that, at least from my point of view, energy efficiency standards are more important now under an electromobility scenario even than before, because also one of the main concern of electromobility users, electric car users, is that they have some kind of uncertainty about autonomy. So what are the plans of the GFEI in order to develop, for example, or in order to continue the promotion of fuel economy standards, including electric vehicles?
Thanks for that. Thank you very much, Luis. It's forgive me, Felipe. It's an absolutely crucial point. I couldn't agree with you more. I think there are two things I would say. One thing is that in relation to the UK government's Transition Council, the initiative I mentioned at the end, with which we're working very closely, alongside some very clear statements about electrification, we have been successful in ensuring there is also a clear signal that fuel efficiency standards and fuel economy standards remain essential. So part of the role that we're playing within the initiative is to ensure that they stick to that, and that we don't just go down the path of promoting some concept of electrification. Secondly, it is within our own documentation, is very much the view of our partners, and therefore will always be within what we're saying when we work with countries, that the two things must be seen together: CO2 targets and regulation on vehicles alongside Zev mandates. So ideally, very much brought together into one policy pathway, so very much integrated. And it's essential, just as you say, for all the reasons you mentioned, but also because secondhand vehicle flows of existing internal combustion engines will still mean a great deal of carbon dioxide going up into the air, just in different markets. And and it doesn't affect the climate change. It still happens. So we absolutely support that, and we will continue to work, as I say, through those global processes to reiterate that, and in country we will always be encouraging countries to see this together.
Thank you, Sheila, for your answer. So we would like to thank you again for being in this webinar. It has been very important for us to have such a relevant person in this service, in this webinar. We would like to thank to everyone that is connected to the webinar. And to finish, we would like to mention the entities that are associated with this webinar: the Sustainable Mobility Unit of the United Nations Environment Program, the Global Fuel Economy Initiative, the European Union, la Universidad Tecnológica de Pereira, the Global Environment Facility, Climate and Clean Air Coalition, Partnership for Clean Fuels and Vehicles, and la Red Latinoamericana de Investigación en Energía y Vehículos, Relieve, and FIA Foundation, of course. Thank you very much for attending this webinar, and thank you again to Sheila for the presentations. We wait for you in the next webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you, Sheila.